Hello, everyone, and welcome. You are watching the EBC international coverage of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot, coming to you from Washington, D.C. Tonight, we will hear from several of our correspondents here in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, and in Latin America. May Bondoc Ramos in Washington, D.C.
President Trump signs new legislation to help small businesses.
Mayan Guerzon in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
Governor Murphy announces a 6-point roadmap to reopening New Jersey.
Jehan Yap in Van Nuys, California.
California Governor Gavin Newsom enacts 3 initiatives and programs to assist the elderly residents and continue the state's actions against COVID-19.
Stephanie Ward in San Antonio, Texas, tells us about the Spurs teaming up with the city for a game plan against COVID-19. And the Church of Christ in Lubbock sponsors a free curbside grocery distribution. We have tonight Thomas Likeness in Edmonton, Alberta.
2 more provinces give us a peek at just how they're going to ease pandemic restrictions.
Dwight Baloloy in Melbourne, Victoria.
COVID Safe Act, Australia's new measure to fight off virus.
Nadine Dueñas in Ciudad de Guatemala.
Guatemalans are eager for the end of the COVID-19 lockdown, but are worried this would lead to an increase of cases. Los guatemaltecos están ansiosos por el fin de la cuarentena del COVID-19. Sin embargo, están preocupados por el aumento de casos.
Janica Ira Peralta in Medellín, Colombia.
Pico y cédula comienza en Colombia. Pico y cédula begins in Colombia.
But first, an overview of how the world looks now. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University and Medicine, as of 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday, April 27, 2020, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now more than 3 million. This includes more than 978,000 in the United States and more than 49,000 in Canada. Sadly, this virus has claimed more than 209,000 lives worldwide, and this number includes more than 55,000 deaths in the United States and more than 2,700 in Canada. Our coverage begins now. The World Health Organization's Director General said Monday that the agency had sounded the highest level of alarm over the novel coronavirus early on, but lamented that not all countries had heeded its advice. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus pointed out that the WHO warned the COVID-19 outbreak constituted a, quote, public health emergency of international concern on January 30, when there were no deaths and only 82 cases registered outside China. Take a look.
The world should have listened to WHO then carefully, because global emergency, the highest level of emergency, was triggered on January 30 when we only had 82 cases and no deaths in the rest of the world. And every country could have triggered all its public health measures possible.
The organization has faced scathing criticism from President Donald Trump, who earlier this month suspended Washington's funding after accusing the WHO of downplaying the seriousness of the outbreak and kowtowing to China, where the novel coronavirus was first reported to have surfaced late last year. Tedros insisted that the UN Health Agency had provided sound advice from the beginning, quote, based on the best science and evidence. He cautions, however, the pandemic is far from over.
But the pandemic is far from over. I repeat, the pandemic is far from over. WHO continues to be concerned about the increasing trends in Africa, Eastern Europe, Latin America, and some Asian countries. As in all regions, cases and deaths are underreported in many countries in these regions because of low testing capacity.
Meanwhile, Michael Ryan, the chief of WHO Emergency Response Program, says precautions taken by countries to flatten the curve have slowed down the spread of infection. But by lifting lockdown orders too soon, the virus could resume its rapid spread.
The public health and social measures, the lockdowns, have created huge pressure on the virus. They're preventing the virus finding new victims. And in doing that, you're putting that pressure on the virus's capacity to survive. And I think it's fairly logical that if you lift that pressure too quickly, the virus can jump back. And we don't know how quickly, and we don't know for sure which are the measures that will result in a successful exit strategy.
When we come back, live updates from our Eagle News correspondents. We will return shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. You are watching the EBC international coverage of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot in Washington, D.C. President Donald Trump signs a new legislation to help small businesses. Eagle News correspondent May Bondoc Ramos in Washington, D.C. has the details.
Hi, Eliza. How are you doing? We missed you.
I miss you too, May.
So before we dive into White House update, let us look at the current numbers here in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. The total number of confirmed cases in DMV has increased to 36,914 with 1,501 COVID-19 related deaths. Maryland has added 900 positive cases. Washington, D.C. has added 51. Their COVID-related 19 deaths had added 31 for Maryland and 7 for Washington, D.C. Now, President Donald J. Trump had quite the interesting weekend. He had multiple tweets regarding his comments on the use of disinfectants against COVID-19 and lashed out against some media outlets. Whether you agree or not with his statements, or whether you believe the president when he says that he's speaking sarcastically, is up to the individual. What we at EBC News like to focus on are facts and what the actions the president actually took. Now, on April 24, like this one, President Trump signed new legislation that would further assist small businesses, workers, and healthcare providers. Talking about this new legislation, President Trump said, I quote, "Throughout this crisis, my administration has taken unprecedented actions to rush economic relief to our citizens." Let's listen to his statement.
This is really well.
I want to thank Congress for answering my call to pass this critical funding. And the bill includes, as you probably know, you've been watching it over the last week as it matured unto this point, $320 billion to refill the Paycheck Protection Program, helping keep millions and millions of American workers on the payroll. Great for small businesses, great for the workers.
According to the whitehouse.gov's website, this legislation will provide the following: $320 billion, according to President Donald Trump, in additional funding for the PPP, or Paycheck Protection Program, which is a program designed to aid small businesses and millions of American workers. The bill appropriates $60 billion more for the Small Business Administration Disaster Loan Program. $75 billion in funding will be provided to hospitals and healthcare providers, and $25 billion will support testing efforts. According to the AFP, I quote, "The new package provides $320 billion for small businesses to keep their doors open and pay their workers after the initial $349 billion in the Paycheck Protection Program was drained in just 2 weeks." The bill is clearly designed to help small businesses, and just in the DMV area, there are many who are in need. Please watch what Sylvan Kramer has to say about needing financial assistance for his business. He is a co-owner of a restaurant in Washington, D.C.
I think the hardest really for us is all our employees, right? We have pretty much laid everybody off at the moment. So it's just David and myself who run it at the moment, just to keep the overhead down, right? And we make at least money to pay rent. We don't really expect to receive it at all, right? I mean, that's the big question. The payroll program, after they launched it, they ran out of money very, very quickly. They have more funding now. So they're doing kind of like a second process. So it would be great to get that, especially so we can pay our employees, get employees back to work.
How he will receive this funding is still not clear. But let's hope that his business is included in this bill so that he can continue his business. And so, yes, it's important that these small businesses get the aid that they need. But it's also just as important that we as customers and neighbors do our best to patronize these small businesses so that they can continue to exist. That clip you heard earlier is for a Swiss restaurant called Stable, located in H Street in Washington, D.C. They have a 4.5 rating in Yelp, and I have to admit that the food looks amazing. My family and I will be ordering takeout from Stable, so you should too. If not from Stable, perhaps you and your family can order from a local restaurant in your area. In Washington, D.C., May Bonda Cremos, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Eliza.
Thank you, May. We in EBC, we always support small businesses, especially local businesses. May, is the fund solely for small businesses, or is this also good news for others? And what else will the funds be used for from the legislation that has just been signed by the president?
Yeah. So according to the president, there are also other allocations for the fund. So $75 billion are allocated for hospital, $25 billion is allocated to expand virus testing, and $60 billion in disaster recovery loans and grants. So at least we know that there are some other use for these funds, not just for small businesses. They are actually really allocating the funds for use for other department that needs it.
Well, thank you. We hope those funds reach these departments or these organizations sooner rather than later. Thank you, May. Governor Murphy announces a 6-point roadmap to reopening New Jersey. Eagle News correspondent Mayan Manzano-Guerzon in Sicklerville has a report.
Thank you, Eliza. Starting first with the latest numbers of New Jersey's COVID-19 related cases as of April 27. Total number of New Jerseyans tested positive 111,188. New cases reported today, 2,146. New deaths is 106, and New Jersey's total fatalities is 6,044. Meanwhile, new number of cases discharged from hospitalization is 480. New Jersey is the second U.S. state with the most number of COVID-19 cases after the state of New York. Now on to the headline. Governor Murphy announces a 6-point roadmap to reopening New Jersey. In his daily coronavirus press briefing, Murphy reiterates that public health creates economic health, and this is the one and only overarching principle that he will be guided by as he plans to reopen the state. The road back is driven by data, science, health progress, and common sense. We will use rigorous standards that are equally smart and thoughtful, and everything we do will be filtered through our New Jersey values, said Murphy. He then announced the 6 principles that will keep New Jersey on the road back, using renewed public health to create renewed economic health. Principle 1, demonstrate sustained reductions in new COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations. 14-day trend line showing appreciable and sustained drop in new COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and other metrics reflecting decreasing burden of disease. Principle 2, expand testing capacity, at least double current diagnostic testing capacity, prioritize testing for healthcare workers, essential personnel, and vulnerable populations. Create a flexible testing plan accessible to all residents. Principle 3, implement robust contact tracing. Recruit and deploy an army of personnel who will identify and follow up with contacts. Principle 4, secure safe places and resources for isolation and quarantine. To the greatest extent possible, provide individuals who do test positive in the future with a safe and free place to isolate and protect others from COVID-19. Principle 5, execute a responsible economic restart. Create the Governor's Restart and Recovery Commission to advise on the process and recommend responsible and equitable decisions. Plan for a methodical and strategic return to work based on level of disease transmission risk and essential classification. Principle 6, ensure New Jersey's resiliency. Learn from the lessons of COVID-19 and prepare for the possibility of a resurgence. Ensure hospitals, healthcare systems, and other health delivery facilities have inventories of personal protective equipment and ventilators. Now, Governor Murphy's stay-at-home order, which has been in effect since March 21st, will remain in effect in its entirety until further notice, and the aforementioned principles will guide the process for lifting restrictions. In Sicklerville, New Jersey, Mayan Manzano Garzon, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Mayan. Mayan, with this plan to reopen the state, was there a time frame given?
Hi, Eliza. There was no specific answer to this in the press briefing earlier today, but Murphy actually said that he doesn't want to be accused of not giving light at the end of the tunnel, but he just couldn't give a more detailed answer aside from what he said that it could be months or number of. Eliza.
Well, are there any priorities as to which businesses or industries might come back first once the city slowly reopens?
Well, Eliza, Governor Murphy did not specifically mention any businesses, but he said the first to reopen would be workplaces and other venues where there's a high degree of confidence that social distancing and other related norms can be effectively executed. And that aside from essential stuff, Murphy also said that parks are essential for mental health reasons. Eliza.
I agree. Mental health should come first. Thank you, Mayan. California Governor Gavin Newsom enacts 3 initiatives and programs to assist the elderly residents and continue the state's actions against COVID-19. In Van Nuys, we have Jehan Yap.
Thank you, Eliza. In Los Angeles County, the total current number of confirmed cases is 20,417 and 942 deaths are announced by the Los Angeles Public Health Department. Over this past weekend, Los Angeles County transferred over 40 people that had set their tents and made a place for themselves underneath a bridge in Los Angeles, which they had called their place of residence for several years. The city provided large container bins and plastic bags to assist them as they moved out all of their clothes and their personal items. They were then relocated to a designated hotel where they were given a room free of any cost, with a bed to sleep on, a bathroom to take a shower in, and an access to basic living necessities. This was the benefit of the Project Room Key initiative of Governor Gavin Newsom to assist the homeless and limit the spread of COVID-19 in California. Meanwhile, the state of California now has 43,853 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 1,724 deaths as recorded by the Johns Hopkins University and Medicine Coronavirus Resource Center. California Governor Gavin Newsom recently enacted 3 initiatives and programs to assist the elderly residents and continue the state's actions against COVID-19. first program is a meal delivery to seniors with a twofold goal. The primary goal is to assist the elderly in receiving cooked, nutritious, and delivered meals to their homes, with a secondary goal to also assist local restaurants who have lost revenue due to this pandemic. The second program is a social bridging project, which requires the partnership of public and private organizations from Listos, California, California Department of Aging, and United Airlines to the Community Emergency Response Teams and Sacramento State University to call the seniors who are at home, as they may be experiencing social isolation and in need of assistance. Through these phone calls, the older adults in California can be cared for by having these callers check in on their condition, refer them if they need additional resources, and communicate with them on a personal level. The state of California is expecting more than 1,000 people to join in calling the elderly residents. And the third program is to expand the Friendship Line California, a toll-free phone number, to the elderly population throughout the state, that they may also receive the emotional support needed to battle their fears of anxiety, loneliness, and isolation. Kim McCoy Wade, the California Department of Aging Director, stated, "Older adults are heroes for being the first Californians to stay at home and save lives. However, they may be struggling to access food and with the mental health implications of isolation." These initiatives and programs enacted by the California governor are geared to caring for the senior population, as they are among the most at risk for COVID-19 and most vulnerable during these times. In Van Nuys, California, Jehan Yap, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Jehan. Well, Jehan, going back to Project Room Key, while assisting these 40 individuals that you have mentioned, it's certainly helpful. But just how much more is needed to be done to aid the homeless?
Project Room Key is a start, but there's a lot of work ahead. Driving through certain parts of Van Nuys, I counted a lot of tents on the street. And just about every abandoned building I passed by, there was someone there taking shelter. So yes, a lot of work is needed.
Well, thank you for the update, Jehan. Stay safe. The San Antonio Spurs team up with the city for a game plan against COVID-19. And the Church of Christ in Lubbock sponsors a free curbside grocery distribution. Stephanie Ward in San Antonio reports.
First, let's take a look at the numbers. The latest update in the Lone Star State includes a total of 24,631 confirmed COVID-19 cases, with 648 fatalities and 10,763 recoveries. Here in the San Antonio metro area, we have a total of 1,231 confirmed COVID-19 cases, but no new deaths within the last 4 days, leaving the death toll at 43. Though the basketball season has been canceled, the San Antonio Spurs are still teaming up, but this time with the city of San Antonio in a game plan to help slow down the spread of COVID-19 by launching a series of public service announcements. The Spurs are the newest community partner to help fight against COVID-19. The videos, which feature the Spurs Coyote mascot and player Patty Mills, urge residents to continue practicing social distancing. They also have been showing new ways to stay connected with loved ones from afar, laying out a game plan to stay strong in the battle against COVID-19. While San Antonio has demonstrated success in managing COVID-19, not overwhelming the local media services, and helping to flatten the curve, Dr. Anita Kurian, Assistant Director at Metro Health, warns that this does not mean that the threat is less real. If we do not limit our movement and stay home, San Antonio could face a second peak of cases, Dr. Kurian stated. The city announced starting this week, everyone 10 years or older are required to wear a cloth face covering their nose and mouth when in a public place where 6 feet distancing is difficult. Although San Antonio has not seen its peak of COVID-19 cases yet, researchers project the peak will occur sometime in the next 3 weeks. Meanwhile, we move to the other side of Texas, where local residents in the city of Lubbock receive help from a local church. On Sunday, volunteers from the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ prepared bags of free groceries and household items to be distributed to families in need via curbside pickup. According to their resident minister, Rolando Bonita, This project is known as Aid to Humanity, and this serves to help the community by offering free groceries to help ease the burden caused by loss of wages or unemployment due to COVID-19. And that's all from my side. Back to you guys at the studios. We live in interesting times. This is Stephanie Ward.
Thank you, Stephanie. More live updates when we come back. Eagle News will return shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. You are watching the EBC International coverage of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglekmot in Washington, D.C. There are two more Canadian provinces that have given a glimpse of their plans on how to ease pandemic restrictions. Eagle News correspondent Thomas I. Likeness in Edmonton reports.
Good evening, Eliza. Hope all is well in Washington.
All is well.
Okay, these two provinces that we're going to talk about now, they couldn't be more different. We're talking about Quebec, we're talking about Ontario. They're the two most populous provinces in Canada. One, the principal language is French. The other, the principal language is English, although you'll hear both languages in parts of both provinces. Now, both have been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. As a matter of fact, these two provinces account for 82% of the cases in Canada. Quebec has the most cases in the country. They're at about, more than 24,000. Ontario at nearly 15,000 cases. Now, today, both provinces announced how they plan to ease restrictions. Quebec will begin within a couple of weeks. Ontario is being a bit more cautious. Let's go to Quebec first. Today, Quebec Premier Francois Legault told a news conference, and these are his words, life must go on. And with that, he announced that elementary schools and daycares outside of Montreal will reopen on May the 11th. Those in Montreal will open about a week later after the long weekend, May the 19th. Attendance won't be compulsory. Again, this is just elementary schools and daycare. His reasoning? Legault says going without school for 5 or 6 months is just too long for young children, and he says young kids are the least likely to get the infection. But what about older students? What about them? Those attending high school, college, university, they will have to wait until late August. Now, if for some reason things were to get suddenly worse, Legault says that plan will change. Legault has promised also tomorrow that he will announce a plan to allow some businesses in the province to reopen. Now, let's go to Ontario. Premier Doug Ford announced a plan as a 3-point plan, but details are vague. There are no timelines. Premier Ford, why is that?
Well, we said this is a roadmap. It's not a calendar. It's a roadmap. So we're going to continue working hard, and I just encourage everyone, please continue following the protocols. We've come so far with this fight, and we just don't want to give up now. We want to continue moving forward, and the quicker we see the numbers come down, the quicker we can get things back to normal. But right now, we have to keep following the protocol.
Now, once that journey begins, just where is that roadmap going to take the province? Well, in the first stage, the province will consider opening select workplaces that can meet the current public health guidelines. They're going to have enough PPE if it's required, be able to do the distancing and so on. They'll also allow essential gatherings, but they're going to be limited to a certain number of people. Some outdoor spaces will be open, maybe golf courses, and there'll be continued protections for vulnerable populations. Phase 2 will see more workplaces open, larger gatherings allowed, but not the big ones, You won't see arenas full of sports fans. You won't see big concerts. That will come in the final stages, and who knows when that's going to happen. Ford says for any plan, any phase of that plan to go into effect, the province has to see a decrease in the number of new cases over a 2 to 4 week period. So again, no timelines for Ontario. Here's a quick look at the Canadian numbers. More than 48,000 cases nationwide, and sadly, more than 2,700 deaths. Mental health has received much discussion during the COVID-19 pandemic. Just how are Canadians doing? How have the job losses, how have the illnesses, uncertainties, self-isolation affected their emotional and psychological well-being? How are they bearing up? What are people feeling? Well, we look to a poll done by the nonprofit Angus Reid Institute. According to that poll, half of Canadians report a worsening of their mental health. And actually, 1 in 10 says it has worsened a lot. Asked to describe how they feel in recent weeks, 44% say they're likely to be worried, 41% anxious. This one kind of caught my attention. Don't know why they would feel this way, but 30% of people that were surveyed said they're bored. They're bored. And this shows you that some people have hope, because fully 1/3 also say they're grateful. They're grateful. Well, I hope things aren't I hope you aren't letting things get you down. Just maintain your hope. Be like that 1/3 who say they're grateful. For all of you, I wish you all good health. Take care of others. Take care of yourselves. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Thomas. Before we'll let you go, you said half of Canadians, based on that poll that you just mentioned, reported worsening mental health. And we heard earlier from Jehan in Los Angeles and Mayan in New Jersey that mental health is a concern. Are there programs launched or steps taken by government agencies and or private organizations to address this issue, considering the situation, like you said, is not ending anytime soon?
This is something that the Canadian government recognized very early in the game here. A few weeks after the pandemic was declared and we got into these emergency programs, there was additional funding given for something called the Kids Helpline for young people to call. It's a 24-hour-a-day service, but also for adults. There's a mental health website, and that website can put them into contact with various resources, whether it be counselors, whether they can arrange a virtual session, just all kinds of resources that might be available to people to help them get through this.
Well, thank you for that, Tom.
Thank you, Eliza.
Meanwhile, Australia is using a new mobile app to fight off COVID-19. Eagle News correspondent Dwight Baloloy in Melbourne, Victoria, with the details.
Hi, Liza. Good evening there. And it's good afternoon here in Down Under. But happy 52nd anniversary to you and to all of the fellow correspondents around the world.
Yes, happy 52nd anniversary to EBC.
Yes, back to the report. The Australian government has developed an app called COVID Safe in hopes to help contain the spread of the virus. The government encourages people here to voluntarily download the app and register their name, age range, mobile, and postcode. So what this app does is that it uses the Bluetooth in your smartphone to track other devices that have the app installed. It allows authorities to know if you have in contact with a person who is diagnosed with the virus. And also it keeps you on track whether you go out for a walk, exercise, or go to a supermarket. It notifies your current situation. This app speeds up the process of tracking and containing the spread of the virus and will update people whether they are in a safe condition. The current confirmed cases here in Australia is 6,720 with 83 deaths and 5,586 recovered from the virus. From Melbourne, Australia, this is Dwight Baloloy, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Dwight. I have one question. What happens to the information uploaded to the app? It's kind of scary, but well, I'm kind of skeptical, but what happens to the information?
So since the virus have the 14-day incubation period, the app allows for a 21-day window or period to confirm if there's anyone that has been tested positive for the virus, and it will continuously notify people if ever they have in contact with those who have been tested positive. After 21 days, information collected from the user's phone will automatically be deleted. Personal information won't be shared to other people as they can only be accessed by authorities and officials.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you, Dwight. Coming up, live reports from our Latin America correspondents. Stay tuned. This is Eagle News. You are watching the EBC international coverage of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot in Washington, D.C. From Australia, let's now head over to Latin America. Guatemalans are eager for the end of the COVID-19 lockdown, but fear it might lead to an increase of cases. Eagle News correspondent Nadine Dueñas in Ciudad de Guatemala with a story.
Hola, Eliza from Guatemala City. How are you doing?
Good. Hola.
Hola, buenas tardes. A día de hoy, aquí en Guatemala, se confirmaron 500 casos positivos del coronavirus, de los cuales hay 434 casos activos, 15 fallecidos, 2 fallecidos por causa ajena del COVID-19 y 49 recuperados. De hecho, el 5 de marzo, el presidente Alejandro Yamatei, junto a sus ministros, ha declarado el estado de calamidad, limitando las concentraciones de personas y prohibiendo toda clase de espectáculos públicos, reuniones y eventos, siendo vigente estas medidas hasta el 5 de mayo. Sin embargo, mientras iban aumentando los casos, especialmente después de la detección del primer caso del coronavirus, que fue el 13 de marzo, las restricciones se incrementaron, entre los cuales destacan la suspensión de clases, paro laboral, suspensión de actividades no esenciales, suspensión de transporte público, la prohibición de ingreso a extranjeros e incluso el cierre de fronteras terrestres, aéreas y marítimas. Estas medidas supuestamente iban a ser adoptadas por 15 días, terminándose el 31 de marzo. Pero el 23 de marzo se aprobó de urgencia la prórroga de 30 días más al estado de calamidad. Además de esto, el 21 de marzo se declaró un toque de queda nacional. Este toque de queda fue cambiándose según disponía el gobierno. La última notificación se realizó el pasado 19 de abril, en el que se declaró que el toque de queda se corría desde las 6 de la tarde hasta las 4 de la mañana. Además de esto, durante el mismo comunicado, el presidente anunció que se extendería otra vez hasta el 27 de abril la cuarentena derivada por el COVID-19 y que el movimiento interdepartamental sigue restringido para Guatemala, Zacatepeques y Chimaltenango, permitiendo aún el viaje entre departamentos en el resto de países. Otro dato a destacar es que a partir del 13 de abril se anunció que el uso de mascarillas o tapabocas es obligatorio en espacios públicos, por lo que se sancionarán a las personas que no los usen con multas de 7,000 quetzales hasta 150,000 quetzales. La población sigue pendiente de los anuncios oficiales del presidente, con la esperanza de que esta cuarentena no se extienda más. Además de esto, gracias a la preocupación del gobierno por la salud y bienestar del pueblo y por la colaboración de los ciudadanos, Guatemala se ha colocado como uno de los países con menos casos en el mundo. To the date, here in Guatemala, there are 500 confirmed COVID-19 cases, 434 active cases, 15 deaths, and 49 recovered. On March 5th, 2020, President Alejandro Yamatei announced state of calamity, restricting any type of public reunions and events that would be until May 5. But the restrictions started to increase, especially after the first COVID-19 case appeared. Some of them are suspension of classes, suspension of public transportation, closing of non-essential sections, and also the closing of the Guatemalan frontiers. Curfew hour was also implemented, which now is from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. These were supposed to last for only 15 days, which would end supposedly on March 31st. But on March 23rd, the extension of 30 more days of the state of calamity was approved. Even though the citizens cooperate due to the increase of cases, the president once again announced on April 19 that the lockdown would be extended 1 week more. In Ciudad de Guatemala, Nadine Dueñas, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Gracias, Nadine. Nadine, you said people are eager but also fearful. You go out too, to buy food
Yes.
and your everyday needs. How strictly are the pandemic precautions implemented in your area? And as a resident there, how easy or how difficult was it for you to adjust to what we call now the new normal?
Well, for what is interesting is that here the Guatemaltecos, and that's why right now Guatemala is one of the countries with least cases of COVID-19 around Latin America, is that the citizens, they do respect the social distancing. And since over here it is obligatory the use of the masks, it is not that scary to go outside. But I have to say that the police, they are very strict with those when you have to go out and with the mask and when you have to also maintain the social distancing. About the food and the stock, it's quite still easy here because I insist the government was very fast in that regard. They were very fast in the response to what was happening to the COVID-19.
Wow, that's good to know. Nadine, okay, let's say you've been to the market, you've done your grocery, and we are inviting ourselves to your dining table. What would make up a typical Guatemalan meal, and what would be your favorite main dish? Take us through it. How do you prepare it?
Well, over here, they really like tortillas. But the difference of the tortillas here is that they are a bit thicker compared to the Mexican tortillas, and they love chicken. Anywhere you go, there is chicken. And then they also love tamales. But here the tamales are made of rice and they are made of potatoes, and then they are inside of a banana leaf.
Wow, that sounds good. I'm pretty sure you're an expert now in preparing those.
Hopefully. I have to invite you to come here to Guatemala City.
When everything settles down. Thank you, Nadine. Gracias.
Thank you.
Pico y Cédula has begun in Colombia. Janicira Peralta in Medellín has the story.
Gracias, Eliza. Juan David Palacio, director de la área metropolitana, declaró el comienzo del pico y cédula en el 27 de abril de 2020 y continuará hasta el 10 de mayo. Pico y cédula es un documento que permite a los ciudadanos ir afuera con documentos de identidad dependiendo a los últimos dos números. Hoy los que tienen permiso de comprar sus necesidades son los que tienen sus números de identidad terminando con número 7 o 8. El número total de casos de COVID-19 ahora en el país es 5.379, con un total de 244 muertes. Hay 1.133 pacientes recuperados. La cuarentena que comenzó en el 16 de marzo y debería terminar en el 26 de abril se extendió hasta el 11 de mayo. Oficinas y escuelas están programadas en abrir en esa fecha, pero adultos de edades 70 y más están obligados a quedarse dentro hasta el 31 de mayo. Presidente Iván Duque Márquez espera el recuperamiento de la economía del país al continuar actividades en construcción y manufactura. Comenzaron en el día de hoy y esta se cumplió bajo algunas circunstancias específicas. Los ciudadanos han estado cooperando diligentemente para evitar ser infectados y para asegurar la salud y seguridad de sus familias. Juan David Palacio, the director of the metropolitan area, declared the start of Picoy Cedula on April 27th and will continue until May 10th. Picoy Cedula is a document permitting citizens to go outdoors according to the last digit of their ID number. Today, those allowed to buy their necessities are the ones with IDs ending in the numbers 7 or 8. The current total of COVID-19 cases here in the country is 5,379 with 244 deaths. There have been 1,133 patients who have recovered. The quarantine and lockdown that started on March 16th and was supposedly to end on April 26th has been extended to May 11th. Workplaces and schools are scheduled to resume by then, but adults ages 70 and above must remain indoors until May 31st. President Ivan Duque Marquez aims to recover the country's economy by resuming activities in the construction sector and manufacturing industry. This has been followed under specific circumstances. Citizens have been cooperating quite well to prevent being infected and to ensure the health and safety of their family. En Medellín, Colombia, Janica Irabrata, Eagle News, nosotros vivimos en tiempos interesantes. Gracias.
Gracias, Janica. Janica, aside from implementing the Cedula system in your neighborhood, how are residents cooperating to help stop the spread of the virus, in your observation?
As a tourist, I don't really... the houses around me are mostly Airbnb houses, and I have noticed that people who reserve the houses have lessened, which brings me to the conclusion that the tourism in this country has lowered, and people have not been going on vacations. Instead, they have been in staycations.
Yeah, I would assume that too. Well, Janica, you have been there for a few weeks now. What local dish would be your favorite, or what you have started to really like?
I would really recommend the bandeja paisa because it has almost everything on the plate. So it is composed by garlic rice, black beans, which they call frijoles. It also has avocados. It also has plantains, which are fried bananas. They also have, for Filipinos, what we call lechon, but here they call it chicharron. And they also have sunny side up egg on it.
It's a complete meal, huh?
Yes.
Thank you, Janica. I hope you can join us again next time.
Thank you, Eliza.
You're welcome. Thank you too. We at Eagle Broadcasting Corporation invite you to our 52nd anniversary event, Enjoy Music Beyond the Crisis. It is an online concert that started Sunday and will happen again on May 3, 10, and 17 from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. Philippine time. It is an e-concert for a cause, streamed on all EBC social media channels to help our frontliners, healthcare workers, and communities affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. A few reminders before we end today. Wash your hands often with soap and water. Cover your mouth and nose when sneezing or coughing. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Avoid contact with sick people. If you are sick, stay home and call your healthcare provider. Practice social distancing. That is keeping distance between yourself and others, and avoid crowds. Wear a protective face covering when out in public. Let's continue to thank our frontline and essential workers with a round of applause. We appreciate you. That is today's EBC International coverage of the coronavirus pandemic. Thank you for joining us. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglek Mott. We live in interesting times.